This video will be about the Etruscans, a proto-Roman civilization dated 1000 BC or earlier. The Etruscans are referenced in the Omen occult movie franchise about the Antichrist. We already know that Rome is a beast empire after Greece in Daniel's interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's giant statue, but it seems the Roman Empire was influenced heavily by the Etruscans. Romulus founded Rome according to Etruscan ritual, with a boundary around Palatine Hill following the Etruscan practice. Other examples are urban planning and architecture, forum layout, drainage systems, aqueducts, and sewers, all Etruscan engineering, defensive walls, the use of arches and temples, specifically built on high places. The Etruscans were also known as the people who build towers, like the Tower of Babel. Legal and political influences of the aristocratic Etruscans adopted by Rome include the fasci, adopted directly from the Etruscan royal insignia. Fasci is symbolic of the ability of the magistrate to scourge and execute. Other examples are the gold crown, the ivory throne, and the scepter. The gladiator games were adapted from Etruscan funerary rites of blood offerings to the gods to honor the dead, but religious rites were the core of Etruscan life. They were polytheistic, worshiping a pantheon of gods, some adopted from Greek mythology. They believed that the will of the gods manifested in the material world, and that with divination, sacred knowledge could be gained from those gods, including the interpretation of omens, which they did by examining entrails, mainly of sheep. So they were false prophets. And the religious influence on Rome was profound, specifically the Etruscan use of rituals and priests. Several Roman gods were influenced by Etruscan equivalents, for example, Hercules and Minerva. Remember, Santa Maria sopra Minerva is a Roman Catholic church built on top of a temple of Minerva or Isis. The Roman ritual of triumph was the highest military honor and had Etruscan trappings also. The victor wore a toga and a laurel crown. Remember, in the Donnie Darko movie, Donnie wore a Triumph t-shirt in his session with the psychologist where he was discussing his communication with the demon Frank and contemplating how he would change the future using time travel. People thought that was a reference to Trump, but it was also likely an Etruscan reference of the Triumph ritual as well. Lupercalia, the festival, was originally known as Fabrua, an Etruscan word for purging. The name Lupercalia derives from lupus, wolf. Most of the YouTube channels who cover Etruscans are either really creepy or completely occult. One of them showed someone playing with rune dice the entire video. This occult channel claims that the Etruscans were pagan priests which taught Romans to communicate with the gods and set up ties with the invisible world, gaining divine knowledge. He said their boats represent the all-seeing eye as a path to knowledge and enlightenment. He said the women had knowledge of divination and magic, and that no other culture could compete in the art of divination, which is false prophecy. The noble class of Etruscans reigned over an evil civilization and culture, as we will review in this video. In Revelation, John refers to the seat of idolatry where the woman sits on 7 hills. Since John's vision was during the time of the Romans, those 7 mountains represent the 7 hills of Rome. The Etruscans built their walls around the 7 hills of Rome. The Vatican Hill is a branch of Palatine Hill that was operating at that same time. Capitoline Hill was built during the time when the Etruscan kings ruled Rome. Palatine Hill was where Cybele the hermaphrodite prophet was venerated, associated with divination and prophecy. When a mountain is combined with prophecy, caves and tunnels often serve as portals to the underworld, like at Mount Hermon. The Etruscan necropolis, which we will look at in this video, certainly seemed like portals to the underworld. So the Etruscans are a link in the chain of beast empires. Their idolatrous religion carried forward from ancient Egypt to Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. In this video, we will look at several aspects of the beast empires and their mystery religion as it relates to the Etruscans. For one, the Nephilim bloodlines, including interbreeding to keep the dynastic royal lineage intact. 2, Mother Goddess, otherwise known as the drag queen of heaven worship. Worship of other fallen angels and pagan gods. Wolf symbolism, and the possible location of Tarshish. So let's look at the Nephilim bloodline connections first, also known as the Genesis 6 conspiracy. Historians disagree about the origins of the Etruscans, and it's supposedly a big mystery. But these were the Nephilim bloodlines. The culture contains traces of Scythian, Greek, Egyptian, Phoenician, and Celtic influence, all who are associated with the Nephilim bloodlines as outlined in the Realm of the Ring Lord's book, and also through my other research. I made a prior video showing how most of the Nephilim giant history we see comes from the Mediterranean region, and this is it. Etruscans would have been there on the west coast of Italy near Rome. I'll play some clips from a video about the Etruscans, which is mostly from their necropolis or city of the dead.
Well, we have this wonderful, elegant woman, and these kinds of ladies, these fine Etruscan ladies, were almost venerated in their time. She has a tutelus, she has a kind of cap on her head, and then wears this beautiful mantle.
That is not a cap. That is an elongated skull. This tomb is dated around 600 BC. So that's either an elongated skull or something making her look like she has an elongated skull, like Scota. Scota's life is dated around 1400 BC. The lines of Egyptian royalty and Scythian royalty co-join with Scota. Scota's descendants migrated from Egypt to Ireland and then Scotland, but to get there, they likely would have gone through Italy. The dark orange on this map was Etruscan territory, and the green is Greek. This demonstrates how they spread also. Notice they spread all over Europe and into the UK. Many of the tombs and images and statues of the Etruscans depict them with large, almond-shaped, wraparound, serpentine-looking eyes like Akhenaten. You see that one here also.
And these Etruscan women were really quite important in their day. And she even has lovely shoes on as well that are long and pointy. It was considered quite the fashion.
Those shoes are called Pauline. Those pointy shoes carried forward with royalty into the Middle Ages, said by Christians to be demonic.
For these Etruscans, they were very, very style conscious. In antiquity, the Etruscans were very much noted for their ability to make bronzes, and one of their specialties was mirrors, which could be used in a lady's toilette, but could also be put into tombs. Many of them are found in the tombs. And there's also in every...
So they had mirrors in their tombs, which we know that mirrors are associated with communication with the spirits. I've seen heraldry with women holding mirrors in my research. They also had coveted Greek pottery and kept that in the tombs in the necropolis, and most of it is very lewd.
The Tomb of the Ogre shows us what appears to be a strange and bloody funerary ritual, or even maybe a blood sacrifice for the dead. The Etruscans loved the art and religious stories of the Greeks, and even fused, or what we say, syncretized, many of their myths into their own religion. Stories about Erclu or Hercules or Heracles were particularly popular, and in this tomb we may actually have one of Heracles' 12 labors depicted. To atone for his sins, Heracles was sent to perform many tasks, among them capturing the Hound of Hell, known as Cerberus, the guardian of the underworld. And here we see a sacrificial victim, perhaps a criminal or a captured enemy, enacting Heracles' famous labor. The man is forced to wear a bag over his head as wild black dogs attack him. A strange masked man, labeled a Firsu and dressed in an old-fashioned full-head mask, entwines the hapless man with rope, thus making his attempt to cope with his situation all the more difficult and unpleasant. The man bleeds profusely from the dogs biting at his legs. This is apparently a funerary game or blood sacrifice, a practice also known to the later Romans.
So, think about that dog attack there, and we saw the same thing in the Omen series of movies. The Etruscans shared the iconography of fallen angel worship with the Greek Anatolians, which is Turkey. This bowl was found, and it's said to be the Holy Bible of Greek mythology.
Risking to make some blasphemy, it is popularly called the Holy Bible of mythology because it has several myths painted on it related to the figure of Achilles, Theseus, and mainly the wedding Pompeii, the wedding procession for Peleus and Thetis, Achilles' parents. That was a very important mythological subject for the first half of the 6th century BC, because we have it painted on a few large vases made in Athens and sent to Etruria.
A lot of the pottery, frescoes, and sarcophagus are adorned with demons also.
Ingresso alla tomba c'è questa straordinaria figura di demone, raffigurato con una zanna ferina che gli fuoriesce dal labbro, in una veste rossa, alla guida di un carro, rappresentato in maniera molto realistica.
A demon with fangs, like a vampire, who accompanies souls to the underworld.
Con il parapetto e la ruota. Si tratta di una figura unica di demone, sicuramente rappresenta il Caron etrusco, corrispondente del Caronte greco, cioè il demone che accompagnava le anime nell'aldilà. E la nostra rappresentazione trova dei contatti con l'iconografia di Caronte di ambito orvietano. La figura del demone si inserisce all'interno di una scena più ampia, caratterizzata dalla rappresentazione.
She said this is the image of a demon with a larger scene characterized by the illustration of 4 animals, 2 lions and 2 griffins. So, griffins and lions. Who else has griffins and lions in their iconography? The Babylonians. It's what's on the Ishtar Gate and the royal heraldry. The Scythians also used griffins in their artwork. We'll look at the similarities in jewelry of the Scythians later.
rappresentazione di 4 animali, 2 leoni e 2 grifoni. Questi animali sono chiaramente animali fantastici, quindi non appartengono a una quadriga reale, ma a una quadriga appunto dell'oltretomba, una quadriga fantastica, e sono tutti inseriti all'interno di questa grande nuvola nera che caratterizza nel IV secolo le figure appartenenti al mondo dell'oltretomba. Al di sotto di questa frattura che noi vediamo, fatta sicuramente da scavatori clandestini recenti, si dipana questa scena complessa con queste sovrapporsi di corpi e zampe che danno la dimensione anche della grande capacità artistica del nostro pittore. Questa invece è la seconda scena della tomba e rappresenta un banchetto funebre con i 2 defunti rappresentati appunto distesi sopra una cline, cioè il letto triclinare, sopra dei cuscini e con un tipico atteggiamento di saluto. La figura di destra è sicuramente il padre che accoglie il figlio giovane, rappresentato con una carnagione più scura perché il giovane è colui che fa i giochi atletici all'aperto. Si tratta quindi probabilmente del pater familias, cioè il proprietario della tomba, che accoglie il figlio morto prematuramente nell'aldilà. Qui invece siamo nella parte...
And there it is. The Hydra with 3 heads, which looks an awful lot like the medieval depictions of the beast ridden by the whore. And there's also a Leviathan-like creature depicted in this same tomb. So where did these mysterious Etruscans come from? First, their genetics were Scythian, mixed with Anatolian, which is Turkish, and Middle Eastern. So, DNA are Anatolian and Scythian from the steppe region. Remember that the Scythians are in the realm of the Ring Lord's book genealogically after the pharaohs and migrated all over Europe. Griffins and lions were on the breastplate of an Etruscan female in the tomb. A royal. Griffins and lions were on the Ishtar Gate in Babylon. They're also on the heraldry of the British royals, along with the unicorn, which represents a bull. So do the Etruscans have a bull? And bulls also, yes. Another tomb had bulls, and those depictions were erotic in nature. So you have the griffin, dragons, lions, bulls, the exact same ones depicted on the Ishtar Gate in Babylon. So this is Etruscan artwork with the griffins. This is Scythian. There's your griffins. It's the same. More Etruscan. Notice the swastika. And that's Indo-Aryan iconography. This chimera is also an Etruscan artifact. Chimeras are associated with the beast empires. This one is bronze, made out of the same materials as the Capitoline wolf, which was also Etruscan. Their alphabet is like Phoenician, and remember that it was Scota's Scythian husband and his father who developed the Phoenician language. Latin is derived from Etruscan. And don't demons speak a little Latin? So they share the same DNA, religious practices, iconography, and gods, the pagan nobility, with the pagan nobility of other cultures. They had a significant influence on Rome, and Rome is represented as the last beast empire, symbolized by iron on this statue interpreted by Daniel. I'll talk about iron as it relates to the Etruscans, Rome, and Tarshish later. Mother Goddess, otherwise known as the drag queen of heaven worship. The religion of the Etruscans was the ancient religion of the ancient Greek Anatolians who inherited from the Scythians, the Indo-Aryans, otherwise known as Nephilim offspring. One aspect of that religion is the worship of the Mother Goddess or the drag queen of heaven. Cybele was worshipped by the Etruscans along with Astarte. Cybele is officially recorded as a hermaphrodite. Palatine Hill is where the temple of Cybele, the hermaphrodite mother goddess, was located, accessible via a long upward stairway known as the Stairs of Caucasus, where the goddess's festival games and plays were staged. The Stairs of Caucasus were named after Caucasus, a fire-breathing giant who lived in a cave on Palatine Hill. The term Caucasus is derived from Caucus, the son of the biblical Togarmah, who was a grandson of Japheth, son of Gomer. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah, while the names of their dioceses are Asia, Iran, and the land of the barbarians. Caucasus is a Scythian word because it's where Scythians lived around 900 BC, 200 BC, and the Scythians were Rephaim. So, a major part of the religion, though, was the worship of Cybele at Palatine Hill, brought over from Greek Anatolia. The Temple of Cybele and the Temple of Diana were both on Palatine Hill and being used for worship at the time when John was on Patmos and had his revelation. Cybele tracks from the Greek Anatolian Empire, Turkey, to Rome to Palatine Hill and other parts of Europe like the Frankish Merovingian Empire and the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and even the United States. Palatine Hill is the home of the original Sibylline prophecies, false prophets receiving their knowledge from the gods who lived underground. Rome, and likely Palatine Hill, will be connected to the female false prophets and drag queen of heaven in the end times, perhaps coming across as Mary apparitions. Babylon in the New Testament is used to symbolize Rome, because if you spoke against Rome at that time, you'd be killed. We get that in the book of Peter, and we get that in the book of Revelation. Peter himself is writing from Rome. In the final conflict Omen movie, Cassiopeia is the star alignment. The priests are watching for the second coming of Jesus and the Antichrist. Cassiopeia represents the drag queen of heaven. In the series Raised by Wolves, you have the mother character, the fallen angel, the alien. There's nothing else about wolves in that series, so the implication is obviously that the mother was raised by wolves, which is a reference to Romulus. We know that the snake-legged goddess is revered among the satanic Roman sect because she's in the Orsini Monster Park near Rome, and it's the same one the Scythians worshipped, and this is it, the Orsini Monster Park. Nicolaitan was an early church sect who had that snake-legged goddess as well. They were in Turkey, but their origins were Greek. Saint Nicholas, the Roman Catholic saint, may have been founder of the Nicolaitans. Jesus admonished them in Revelation, saying he hated their practices. And here she is again in the Scythian gold with their snake-legged goddess. In Thrace also, this is a Gorgon. We'll talk about the Gorgon later. Here's the trindle-legged, snake-legged goddess, Thracian. The Church of the Chaldees were Celts, who also worshipped Cybele and held the tradition of the Phoenicians, and they were descendants of Scota also. The military architect who was hired to do the Hoover Dam Fallen Angel and Cosmogram Monument said that the Church of the Chaldees would rise again, and that's the church that worships Cybele. Ishtar is even the name in real life of one of the nuns that played that nun character in the first Omen movie. Bilingual tablets written in Phoenician and Etruscan dedicated to Astarte were found in Etruscan temples. And who was Astarte? She was Astaroth, a prominent goddess in the Canaanite pantheon alongside Baal and Anath, The Bible refers to Astarte as the Queen of Heaven, a title she inherited from Inanna Ishtar in Mesopotamia, mentioned many times in the Bible, depicted as a false god, highlighting the Israelites' tendency to worship Astarte, leading to their spiritual and moral decline. Prophets like Jeremiah condemned Astarte's worship, warning of punishment if the Israelites persisted in idolatry. King Solomon's worship of Astarte, along with other foreign deities, is a significant example of Israel's deviation from devotion to the God of the Bible. King Josiah's reform included the destruction of high places dedicated to Astarte. The drag queen of heaven is a concept that is carried forward through all the beast empires, from Egypt to Babylon to Medo-Persia to Greece and Rome, as the mother goddess, but it's actually not the mother of anything because fallen angels cannot procreate. They need human women to do that. The mother goddess is an hermaphrodite fallen angel, probably Lucifer. And this will probably be an end-time deception, part of the one-world religion, likely with a seat back on Palatine Hill in Rome, which wins first place for the darkest, most evil place I've ever been, Palatine Hill. Second place is Westminster Abbey. I've talked about my experience at both places before, but I'll say again that Palatine Hill is evil. Even before I was saved, I knew it was when I walked past. And there were no security cameras or guards, which is odd for 3,000-year-old ruins. There was zero security that I could see, yet nobody messed with it, and there were a lot of gypsies around there. So what is guarding it? Probably hellhounds. And I also found some witchy stuff around on the ground there too, some weird straw nest with witch stuff in it. Now let's talk about the worship of other fallen angels and pagan gods. Mars and his Greek equivalent Ares were also venerated by the Etruscans. Both of these gods are associated with wolves. There were also statues of Zeus, Minerva, Apollo, and Hercules found, along with other artifacts venerating these gods. But the symbol of the Etruscans, the official symbol, was the Gorgon, which were demonic women with snakes for hair. And Gorgon derives from Sanskrit term garg, meaning a growling beast. In the latest Omen movie, this is an image from the latest Omen movie. So the nun that they're trying to impregnate with the Antichrist is positioned, her hair done to make her look exactly like a Gorgon. And I wondered why it was like that. I knew it was significant, and then I realized this is definitely a reference to the Etruscans. Wolf symbolism. There's a connection between the wolf, jackal, and hellhounds to the beast empires. Dire wolf translates from Latin to terrible, ominous dog, and it's now being genetically engineered if you believe what's published by Time magazine and other major news outlets. And it seems like we have a world beast empire at the moment. And with the mention of wolves and werewolves, I have to mention vampires since they're connected. And the Nephilim are connected to vampirism. Volterra is an Etruscan city-state with a vast necropolis. The Volturi were the largest and most powerful coven of vampires in Twilight, and they were Italian. And there are thousands of sarcophagi with people carved on top of them in the Etruscan necropolis, and they look like vampires to me. But back to wolves. Anubis, son of Isis and Osiris, is depicted as a jackal in ancient Egypt. The name Anubis in ancient Egyptian language means a royal child, lord of the sacred land, he who is upon his sacred mountain, the dog who swallows millions, and master of secrets. Romulus, who Rome is named for, was Etruscan. Romulus is the one raised by the she-wolf or jackal, son of Mars, aka Ares, and a human woman. A Nephilim royal child, who murdered his brother, Remus like Cain, and this is the infamous Capitoline wolf, long considered an Etruscan bronze, which is feeding the twins Romulus and Remus, but here you just see Romulus because he killed his brother. And it's the same one featured in the movie poster for The Omen about the Antichrist. It's featured on the movie poster because it's synonymous with the jackal, which is a type of wolf. The Antichrist in those movies was the son of a jackal. In the first movies, it was his mother, but in the last one, it was his father. So it represents both sexes, like the drag queen of heaven. So now, I'll play a little bit here about these dogs again in this video in the Etruscans, so you can see the dog reference.
The Tomb of the Augurs shows us what appears to be a strange and bloody funerary ritual, or even maybe a blood sacrifice for the dead. The Etruscans loved the art and religious stories of the Greeks, and even fused, or what we say, syncretized, many of their myths into their own religion. Stories about Erclu or Hercules or Heracles were particularly popular, and in this tomb we may actually have one of Heracles' 12 labors depicted. To atone for his sins, Heracles was sent to perform many tasks, among them capturing the hound of hell, known as Cerberus, the guardian of the underworld. And here we see a sacrificial victim, perhaps a criminal or a captured enemy, enacting Heracles' famous labor. The man is forced to wear a bag over his head as wild black dogs attack him.
In the Omen movie, the jackal, who is referred to as the mother and later the father of the Antichrist, is buried in an Etruscan necropolis, along with the baby they murdered and replaced with the Antichrist into a political family. Also in that scene, you have these same black dogs trying to attack the father of the murdered baby and the photographer in the same manner he just described. Werewolves are usually seen on the moors, which are boggy, swampy areas. Ancient Etruscans inhabited swampy areas in Italy and famously used engineering to drain the swamp. Here in this video, you find the three-headed demonic being on frescoes and tombs, and on this bowl, the Hydra serpent-headed being. So you got black demonic dogs, wolves, dire wolves, werewolves, jackals, all related to beast empires and very prevalent among the Etruscans. So now I'm going to talk about the possible location of Tarshish. The Bible uses Tarshish to critique human pride and dangers of excessive wealth and power. Ships of Tarshish represent the potential for arrogance and disobedience. In the Bible, Tarshish refers to a city, a trading route, and a type of ship associated with the western reaches of the known world. The term ships of Tarshish is a phrase used to describe large merchant vessels that sailed to and from the city carrying valuable goods like gold, silver, ivory, and apes. It's mentioned in connection with Solomon's fleet, Jonah's flight, and various trade networks. The story of Jonah prominently features Tarshish as the destination where he attempts to escape God's command to preach in Nineveh. Ezekiel mentions Tarshish as a merchant and source of goods for Tyre. The ships of Tarshish loaded with riches are often associated with the wealth and power of Tyre, which is eventually destroyed in the book of Isaiah. In Isaiah 2:16, ships of Tarshish are grouped with other large, proud objects like the cedars of Lebanon, the oaks of Bashan, and fortified walls, all representing human pride. Psalms 48:7 likens kings who fled from Mount Zion to ships of Tarshish, broken by an east wind. So there's an Etruscan city near Rome, but on the coast off the Mediterranean Sea, and it's associated with trade in metals like silver, iron, tin, and lead. This is a map of all the places where iron, silver, lead, and tin were mined, all around the Mediterranean Sea. One of them is the Etruscan city named Tarshuna, after the Etruscan god Tarshan, who founded the city, one of the most ancient and important Etruscan cities, with significant role in shaping Etruscan culture and society, and also Rome. It was a vast trading network from its ports. And what did they trade? Iron, mostly, and other metals. Mining that iron is how they made their living. And Tarshuna sounds a lot like Tarshish. Most say that Tarshish is located in the western Mediterranean near the Iberian Peninsula, near Gibraltar and Spain. But what if it was Tarshuna, the Etruscan city? Even if not, we know they made their living mining and trading in the metals. The Tyrrhenian Sea, around Italy at that time, was named for Tarshuna's brother, Tyrrhenus. Tyrrhen and Tyrion were two Lannisters in the Game of Thrones, likely a reference to Etruscans also. So you're looking at the dark orange on the map, which was Etruscan territory, and the green is Greek. Again, this demonstrates how they spread. Notice they spread all over Europe and even into the UK. So with the Etruscans, we have the connection between the ancient beast empires of Egypt, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome through their religious practices, iconography, language, and DNA. The Omen franchise of movies are all about Babylon and connected to Rome. The artifacts are Babylonian, but the Antichrist is born in Rome. In fact, that multi-headed Hydra that we saw earlier is also shown in one of the movies as part of the artifacts, Etruscan and Roman. The original screenplay of The Omen was written by Rev 29ers, and many of the cast are Knights of the Crown or in the club. And these people know Bible and history, and they make a direct correlation between Babylon and Rome, which I think will be the seat of the one world religion as part of the Neo-Babylonian system, with a major component of that being the drag queen of heaven worship. Thanks for listening.